Zoe, must you? Ow! Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the stream. I am, as always, your host, Rogan. Zoe is, as always, agitated as soon as I try to do a reading stream. Wish I understood why specifically the reading streams are one too many for her. Hi. Sorry, I guess I wasn't quite prepared to do this. Not quite. Give me just a second to catch up. Right, I was going to take... Just going to open one of these and take one of these. Listen, you. Stop. Zoe, I'm not going to beat you. No, you don't want me to pick you up and put you up on the ground. Zoe, you can't just crawl into my lap and then crawl out and then crawl in and then crawl out. You've got to settle down. It's not cat treats. It's reefer gummies. You freak. Here's treats for you, okay? Hi, Gandalf. How are you? I'm doing a little better than that. My tongue is still a mess. Yeah, you can go over there too, Pie. Yeah, it's fine, Pie. There you go. Yeah, I'll give you more treats over here too. You don't want treats there? Those are for you. Yeah, you know it's annoying, right? You're a better cat than your sister. Come back over. Pie is being hesitant because she doesn't want to mess things up. She was trying not to walk on the keyboard, and when I tried to pick her up, she accidentally did. And you know, Pie Wacket, I don't have to look over there to see that she looks worried. She's looking at me, and she's worried. You know why? Because Pie Wacket has a conscience, unlike her vicious, intemperate sister, Zoe. Zoe doesn't care what she disrupts or destroys. She could almost be my actual daughter. I'm taking Kratom. I've already taken a bunch of Tylenol for my tongue. So yeah, Gandalf. The tongue, it's still bad. I started speaking like there was some big story there, but not really. Let's stick to Tolkien, shall we stick to the good stuff, the good stories. Let's take a couple more Tylenol. Too much stuff. It's really disheartening sometimes that I can't eat freely. My mouth hurts all the time. It's all right. Right, Tolkien. Where were we in this endeavor of reading J.R.R. Tolkien, Professor Tolkien's, I guess, masterpieces? Yeah, I was going to say it's his one real novel. My earlier lives sure do bring in some strange people. Yeah, Gandalf. I gotta field what I get thrown. I gotta play how those lay. Yeah, and those, like, that seems important. Like, there's something socially proactive going on there. But I can't just be depressed and off my game. I can't be ill. It's really worrisome because my health is going to go again. Like, well, you know what? For one thing, I'm gonna brush my teeth before I go. But these part of the point of the channel, the overarching narrative of the channel, is that at some point my health is going to collapse again. The healthcare system is going to destroy everything again. And it doesn't really jibe with the mission statement of being a solid older unk of an influence among the young people in here. I don't want to depress people or upset people. I got to be tougher. I mean, there is a chance. I mean, in theory, the answer to that is, well, Rogan, you're just assuming that the story of the channel and the narrative of the channel is going to turn out to be one of sorrow, collapse, a lesson, an object lesson in what the healthcare system does to otherwise productive and positive people. Like, in theory, these streams are like, it's 2 or 3 years away from, as long as I can keep working for probably 2 more years, the channel will start to pick up and pay for like insurance, moving somewhere more civilized. In theory, I could live in a foreign country that's got a real healthcare system and do some screenwriting over the back nine, the last 3 of the back 9 of my life. But that's not likely to be how this plays out. Yeah, I stay away from the medical industry. Well, I mean, foreign people who come in here are shocked and horrified, and there's whole classes of Americans who just avoid even talking to anyone who has health problems because it's just a nightmare of guilt and deflected responsibility for them. Like, I really can't have friends or close friends in the real world or family because of the things they have to fear they might end up having to take responsibility for if I just collapse on their watch. It's horrible. Anyway, we're going to read some Tolkien. Now that I've burnt 9 minutes, I try not to do that in these streams. I try to stick to the subject. '50th anniversary 1-volume edition. I bought this copy. During the last couple of years, somewhere, I had a rental car or a truck. I don't know, but I know that I didn't own any books when I bought this. Like, I was down to like 0 books because of losing everything. And I walked into a used bookstore and realized that I no longer like reading. Like, I couldn't find anything that I wanted to read. I just can't enjoy reading anymore. Not in any normal way. I like reading for the channel. You've got to stop doing that, Zoe. You've got to stop. So I had this copy of Lord of the Rings lying around. I mean, mainly it's cool. It's pretty solid paperback. I am certainly going to read it into pieces, though, by the time we're done with this project. Thanks for being here, guys. I have, as always, turned off the live ads. My PayPal link is there in the pinned comment in the chat if you want to throw some money in the tip jar. But for right now, I don't need money. But if somebody gave me $5,000 to fix my teeth, buy a van, I could live in with the cats. The money's just gone sideways in the world. Money makes no sense anymore. But anyway, you can share it with me if you have extra. Thanks. You see, I'm living in a trailer. I have the money to move out. I'm waiting to hear from the landlord about a space for me and Pi and Zoe. It's actually thanks to the stream I have the money to move out. Otherwise, I would be struggling still. Thank you, you guys. Right. Right. Tom Bombadil has just rescued the hobbits from the lair of the Barrow-Wight, some kind of warrior ghost monster, which Tolkien is repeatedly fascinated with that kind of creature in this story. I think actually Lord of the Rings, the movies, one of the reasons they don't use this Barrow-Wight sequence is there's so many other warrior ghosts haunting parts of this story. The name of this chapter is Fog on the Barrow Downs. I'm at a subsection about 4 pages from the end of it, chapter 8 of book 1 of The Lord of the Rings by John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. Thanks for being here. The air was growing very warm again. The hobbits ran about for a while on the grass, as he told them. Then they lay basking in the sun with the delight of those that have been wafted suddenly from bitter winter to a friendly clime, or of people that, after being long ill and bedridden, wake one day to find that they are unexpectedly well, and the day is again full of promise. By the time that Tom returned, they were feeling strong and hungry. He reappeared hat first over the brow of the hill, and behind him came in an obedient line 6 ponies, their own 5, and 1 more. The last was plainly old Fatty Lumpkin. He was larger, stronger, fatter, and older than their own ponies. Mary, to whom the others belonged, had not, in fact, given them any such names, but they answered to the new names that Tom had given them for the rest of their lives. Tom called them one by one, and they climbed over the brow and stood in a line. Then Tom bowed to the hobbits. "Here are your ponies now," he said. "They've more sense in some ways than you wandering hobbits have. More sense in their noses, for they sniff danger ahead which you walk right into, and if they run to save themselves, then they run the right way. You must forgive them all, for though their hearts are faithful, to face fear of Barrow-Wights is not what they were made for. See, here they come again, bringing all their burdens." Merry, Sam, and Pippin now clothed themselves in spare garments from their packs, and they soon felt too hot, for they were obliged to put on some of the thicker and warmer things that they had brought against the oncoming of winter. "Where does that other old animal, that Fatty Lumpkin, come from?" asked Frodo. "He's mine," said Tom, "my 4-legged friend, though I seldom ride him, and he wanders often far, free upon the hillsides. When your ponies stayed with me, they got to know my Lumpkin, and they smelt him in the night and quickly ran to meet him. I thought he'd look for them, and with his words of wisdom take all their fear away. But now, my jolly Lumpkin, old Tom's going to ride. Hey! He's coming with you, just to set you on the road, so he needs a pony, for you cannot easily talk to hobbits that are riding when you're on your own legs trying to trot beside them." The hobbits were delighted to hear this, and thanked Tom many times, but he laughed and said that they were so good at losing themselves that he would not feel happy till he had seen them safe over the borders of his land. I've got things to do, he said, my making and my singing, my talking and my walking, and my watching of the country. Tom can't be always near to open doors and willow cracks. Tom has his house to mind, and Goldberry is waiting. It was still fairly early by the sun, something between 9 and 10, and the hobbits turned their minds to food. Their last meal had been lunch beside the Standing Stone the day before. They breakfasted now off the remainder of Tom's provisions meant for their supper, with additions that Tom had brought with him. It was not a large meal considering hobbits and the circumstances, but they felt much better for it. While they were eating, Tom went up to the mound and looked through the treasures. Most of these he made into a pile that glistened and sparkled on the grass. He bade them lie there free to all finders, birds, beasts, elves, or men, and all kindly creatures, for so the spell of the mound should be broken and scattered, and no wight ever come back to it. He chose for himself from the pile a brooch set with blue stones, many shaded, like flax flowers or the wings of blue butterflies. He looked long at it, as if stirred by some memory, shaking his head and saying at last, "Here is a pretty toy for Tom and for his lady. Fair was she who long ago wore this on her shoulder. Goldberry shall wear it now, and we will not forget her." For each of the hobbits he chose a dagger, long, leaf-shaped, and keen, of marvelous workmanship, damasked with serpent forms in red and gold. They gleamed as he drew them from their black sheaths, wrought of some strange metal, light and strong, and set with many fiery stones. Whether by some virtue in these sheaths or because of the spell that lay on the mound, the blades seemed untouched by time, unrusted, sharp, glittering in the sun. "Old knives are long enough as swords for hobbit people," he said. "Sharp blades are good to have if shire folk go walking east-south or far away into dark and danger." Then he told them that these blades were forged many long years ago by men of Westerness. They were foes of the Dark Lord, but they were overcome by the evil king of Carn-Dûm in the land of Angmar. "Few now remember them," Tom murmured, "yet still some go wandering, sons of forgotten kings, walking in loneliness, guarding from evil things folk that are heedless." The hobbits did not understand his words, but as he spoke they had a vision, as it were, of a great expanse of years behind them, like a vast shadowy plain over which there strode shapes of men, tall and grim with bright swords, and last came one with a star on his brow. Then the vision faded, and they were back in the sunlit world. It was time to start again. They made ready, packing their bags and lading their ponies. Their new weapons they hung on their leather belts under their jackets, feeling them very awkward and wondering if they would be of any use. And wondering if they would be of any use. Fighting had not before occurred to any of them as one of the adventures in which their flight would land them. Hold on. I muted the microphone for the snorfy noises. At last they set off. They led their ponies down the hill, and then mounting, they trotted quickly along the valley. They looked back and saw the top of the old mound on the hill, and from it the sunlight on the gold went up like a yellow flame. Then they turned a shoulder of the downs, and it was hidden from view. Though Frodo looked about him on every side, he saw no sign of the great stone standing like a gate, and before long they came to the northern gap and rode swiftly through, and the land fell away before them. It was a merry journey with Tom Bombadil trotting gaily beside them, or before them, on Fatty Lumpkin, who could move much faster than his girth promised. Tom sang most of the time, but it was chiefly nonsense, or else perhaps a strange language unknown to the hobbits, an ancient language whose words were mainly those of wonder and delight. They went forward steadily, but they soon saw that the road was further away than they had imagined. Even without a fog, their sleep at midday would have prevented them from reaching it until after nightfall on the day before. The dark line they had seen was not a line of trees, but a line of bushes growing on the edge of a deep dike with a steep wall on the further side. Tom said that it had once been the boundary of a kingdom, but a very long time ago. He seemed to remember something sad about it and would not say much. They climbed down and out of the dike and through a gap in the wall, and then Tom turned due north, for they had been bearing somewhat to the west. The land was now open and fairly level, and they quickened their pace, but the sun was already sinking low when at last they saw a line of tall trees ahead, and they knew that they had come back to the road after many unexpected adventures. They galloped their ponies over the last furlongs and halted under the long shadows of the trees. They were on the top of a sloping bank, and the road, now dim as evening drew on, wound away below them. At this point it ran nearly from southwest to northeast, and on their right it fell quickly down into a wide hollow. It was rutted and bore many signs of the recent heavy rain. There were pools and potholes full of water. They rode down the bank and looked up and down. There was nothing to be seen. "Well, here we are again at last," said Frodo. "I suppose we haven't lost more than 2 days by my short cut through the forest, but perhaps the delay will prove useful. It may have put them off our trail." The others looked at him. The shadow of the fear of the Black Riders came suddenly over them again. Ever since they had entered the forest, they had thought chiefly of getting back to the road. Only now, when it lay beneath their feet, did they remember the danger which pursued them, and was more than likely to be lying in wait for them upon the road itself. They looked anxiously back towards the setting sun, but the road was brown and empty. "Do you think," asked Pippin hesitatingly, "do you think we may be pursued tonight?" "No, I hope not tonight," answered Tom Bombadil, "nor perhaps the next day. But do not trust my guess, for I cannot tell for certain. Out east my knowledge fails. Tom is not master of riders from the Black Land far beyond his country." All the same, the hobbits wished he was coming with them. They felt that he would know how to deal with Black Riders if anyone did. They would soon now be going forward into lands wholly strange to them, and beyond all but the most vague and distant legends of the Shire, and in the gathering twilight they longed for home. A deep loneliness and sense of loss was on them. They stood silent, reluctant to make the final parting, and only slowly became aware that Tom was wishing them farewell and telling them to have good heart and to ride on till dark without halting. "Tom will give you good advice till this day is over. After that, your own luck must go with you and guide you. 4 miles along the road, you'll come upon a village, Bree under Bree Hill, with doors looking westward. There you'll find an old inn that is called the Prancing Pony. Barlaam Butterbur is the worthy keeper. There you can stay the night, and afterwards the morning will speed you upon your way. Be bold, but wary. Keep up your merry hearts, and ride to meet your fortune." They begged him to come at least as far as the inn and drink once more with them, but he laughed and refused, saying, "Tom's country ends here. He will not pass the borders. Tom has his house to mind, and Goldberry is waiting." Then he turned, tossed up his hat, leaped on Lumpkin's back, and rode up over the bank and away, singing into the dusk. The hobbits climbed up and watched him until he was out of sight. "I am sorry to take leave of Master Bombadil," said Sam. "He's a caution and no mistake. I reckon we may go a good deal further and see naught better nor queerer. But I won't deny I'll be glad to see this prancing pony he spoke of. I hope it'll be like the Green Dragon away back home. What sort of folk are they in Bree?" "There are hobbits in Bree," said Mary, "as well as big folk. I dare say it will be home-like enough. The pony is a good inn by all accounts. My people ride out there now and again." "It may be all we could wish," said Frodo, "but it is outside the Shire all the same. Don't make yourselves too much at home. Please remember, all of you, that the name of Baggins must not be mentioned. I am Mr. Underhill, if any name must be given." They now mounted their ponies and rode off silently into the evening. Darkness came down quickly as they plodded slowly downhill and up again, until at last they saw lights twinkling some distance ahead. Before them rose Bree Hill, barring the way, a dark mass against misty stars, and under its western flank nestled a large village. Towards it they now hurried, desiring only to find a fire and a door between them and the night. Chapter 9. At the Sign of the Prancing Pony. So, are there any bars named the Prancing Pony? Are there any bars named the Green Dragon? Seriously, the Green Dragon is the bar in Hobbiton where Sam likes to drink? Well, there should be a bar named the Green Dragon in like every town, right? Like every college town should have a Green Dragon, right? Like, the The one that I always see, Gandalf, is the bar in Casablanca with Humphrey Bogart. Sidney Greenstreet runs the competing bar, and he's always offering to buy Rick's place, and in the end, Rick does sell it to him. That, I think it's called the Purple Parrot. I think. But in any case, I've seen a bunch of bars of that name. I think it's the Purple Parrot. I used to live upstairs in Miami from a restaurant called Low, but you can call it was called Dolores, but you can call me Low for Lolita, which was just such a disturbing thing to call your bar and restaurant that I never went in there. Hey, Sean, how are you? You're just in time for Chapter 9, At the Sign of the Prancing Pony. Bree was the chief village of the Bree land, a small inhabited region, like an island in the empty lands round about. Besides Bree itself, there was Staddle on the other side of the hill, Combe in a deep valley a little further eastward, and Archet on the edge of the Chetwood. Archet on the edge of the Chetwood. Lying round Bree Hill and the villages was a small country of fields and tamed woodland only a few miles broad. The men of Bree were brown-haired, broad, and rather short, cheerful, and independent. They belonged to nobody but themselves, but they were more friendly and familiar with hobbits, dwarves, elves, and other inhabitants of the world about them than was, or as usual, with big people. So it's Vermont. I'm way too proud of that joke. According to their own tales, they were the original inhabitants and were the descendants of the first men that ever wandered into the west of the middle world. Few had survived the turmoils of the elder days, but when the kings returned again over the great sea, they had found the Bree men still there, and they were still there now, when the memory of the old kings had faded into the grass. In those days, no other men had settled dwellings so far west or within 100 leagues of the Shire. But in the wild lands beyond Bree, there were mysterious wanderers. The Bree folk called them rangers and knew nothing of their origin. They were taller and darker than the men of Bree and were believed to have strange powers of sight and hearing, and to understand the languages of beasts and birds. They roamed at will southwards and eastwards, even as far as the Misty Mountains, but they were now few and rarely seen. When they appeared, they brought news from afar and told strange forgotten tales which were eagerly listened to, but the Bree folk did not make friends of them. There were also many families of hobbits in the Bree land, and they claimed to be the oldest settlement of hobbits in the world, one that was founded long before even the Brandywine was crossed and the Shire colonized. They lived mostly in Staddle, though there were some in Bree itself, especially on the higher slopes of the hill above the houses of the men. The big folk and the little folk, as they called one another, were on friendly terms, minding their own affairs in their own ways, but both rightly regarding themselves as necessary parts of the Bree folk. Nowhere else in the world was this peculiar but excellent arrangement to be found. The Bree folk, big and little, did not themselves travel much, and the affairs of the four villages were their chief concern. Occasionally the hobbits of Bree went as far as Buckland or the East Farthing, but though their little land was not much further than a day's riding east of the Brandywine Bridge, the hobbits of the Shire now seldom visited it. An occasional Bucklander or adventurous Took would come out to the inn for a night or two, but even that was becoming less and less usual. The Shire hobbits referred to those of Bree and to any others that lived beyond the borders as outsiders, and took very little interest in them, considering them dull and uncouth. There were probably many more outsiders scattered about in the west of the world in those days than the people of the Shire imagined. Some, doubtless, were no better than tramps, ready to dig a hole in any bank and stay only as long as it suited them. But in the Bree land, at any rate, the hobbits were decent and prosperous, and no more rustic than most of their distant relatives inside. It was not yet forgotten that there had been a time when there was much coming and going between the Shire and Bree. There was Bree blood in the Brandybucks, by all accounts. For some reason, that particular passage has always struck me as being a really, really advanced piece of world building. I mean, all it does is set up that this is the bar at the edge of Hobbit land where hobbits and like people hang out. Like it doesn't require that. He just has it that worked out. Like you can see the map. You don't even need to look at the map to see it. He describes it so carefully. Vermont's not right because of the weird ethnic racial thing going on. It's more like he's talking about like the part of Florida where there's still Osceola Indians or something. The village of Bree had some 100 stone houses of the big folk, mostly above the road, nestling on the hillside with windows looking west. On that side, running in more than half a circle from the hill and back to it, there was a deep dike with a thick hedge on the inner side. Over this the road crossed by a causeway, but where it pierced the hedge it was barred by a great gate. There was another gate in the southern corner where the road ran out of the village. The gates were closed at nightfall, but just inside them were small lodges for the gatekeepers. You know, who else was really taken with this whole passage and the world building involved is the guys who invented Dungeons and Dragons. Like the description of the Rangers is just straight up, like at least the first couple versions of D&D that I grew up playing. Rangers were a thing. They probably got developed more later. As a thing in Dungeons and Dragons, but also like the fortified town. Like there's always a fortified town in Dungeons and Dragons. Like, and I would always like you're kind of always encouraged to, at least in the early versions of D&D. It's kind of like the way that is in the 90s video games I played, like Legend of Zelda, like or Diablo, where the town is just where you go to gear up. And sometimes to get messages, like you have to go up to people and get dialogue balloons from them. But I was always fascinated with like the non-player characters. Like, I mean, if you guys are like warriors coming out of the wilderness, you could just mow down this town if you wanted to. Like I'd always think like why wouldn't hold on, I'm gonna mute this. Clearly the model for Dungeons and Dragons was Lord of the Rings a little bit more than Howard's Conan stories. I somehow don't think anybody's ever interviewed the people who invented Dungeons and Dragons on the right level to like ask the questions I would want to ask them. But I'm not a gaming guy. Down on the road, where it swept to the right to go round the foot of the hill, there was a large inn. It had been built long ago when the traffic on the roads had been far greater. For Bree stood at an old meeting of ways. Another ancient road crossed the east road just outside the dike at the western end of the village, and in former days men and other folk of various sorts had travelled much on it. Strange as news from Bree was still a saying in the East Farthing, descending from those days when news from north, south, and east could be heard in the inn, and when the Shire hobbits used to go more often to hear it. But the northern lands had long been desolate, and the north road was now seldom used. It was grass-grown, and the Bree folk called it the Greenway. The inn of Bree was still there, however, and the innkeeper was an important person. His house was a meeting place for the idle, talkative, and inquisitive among the inhabitants, large and small, of the 4 villages, and a resort of rangers and other wanderers, and for such travelers, mostly dwarves, as still journeyed on the east road to and from the mountains. It was dark, and white stars were shining, when Frodo and his companions came at last to the Greenway crossing and drew near the village. They came to the west gate and found it shut. Hey, Sophie, how are you? They came to the west gate and found it shut, but at the door of the lodge beyond it there was a man sitting. He jumped up and fetched a lantern and looked over the gate at them in surprise. And now we're back to the movie. Because I remember they really nailed this bit in the Jackson movies. Actually, I'm not like a huge fan of the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies, but it's easy to concede they're half brilliant, and sometimes they really nail it. The Bree sequence is pretty nailed, but the Bree sequence is really good in the Bakshi movie too. Hello, Micah. What do you want and where do you come from? He asked gruffly. We are making for the inn here, answered Frodo. We are journeying east and cannot go further tonight. Hobbits, 4 hobbits, and what's more, out of the Shire by their talk, said the gatekeeper softly, as if speaking to himself. Oh. He stared at them darkly for a moment, and then slowly opened the gate and let them ride through. We don't often see Shire folk riding on the road at night, he went on as they halted a moment by his door. You'll pardon my wondering what business takes you away east of Bree. What may your names be, might I ask? Our names and our business are our own, and this does not seem a good place to discuss them, said Frodo, not liking the look of the man or the tone of his voice. Your business is your own, no doubt, said the man, but it's my business to ask questions after nightfall. We are hobbits from Buckland, and we have a fancy to travel and stay at the inn here, put in Merry. I am Mr. Brandybuck. Is that enough for you? The Bree folk used to be fair-spoken to travelers, or so I had heard. All right, said the man. I meant no offense, but you'll find maybe that more folk than old Harry at the gate will be asking you questions. There's queer folk about. If you go on to the pony, you'll find you're not the only guests. It's okay, Zoe. I'm not upset. It's okay, buddy. So he's worried. It's all right. He wished them good night, and they said no more, but Frodo could see in the lantern light that the man was still eyeing them curiously. He was glad to hear the gate clang to behind them, as they rode forward. He wondered why the man was so suspicious, and whether anyone had been asking for news of a party of hobbits. Could it have been Gandalf? He might have arrived while they were delayed in the forest and the downs, but there was something in the look and the voice of the gatekeeper that made him uneasy. The man stared after the hobbits for a moment, and then he went back to his house. As soon as his back was turned, a dark figure climbed quickly in over the gate and melted into the shadows of the village street. I'm gonna interrupt here to point out that I sometimes think it's one of the great failings of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and sometimes I think it's one of its great strengths, that when he does this adventure story stuff, it's so silly. It's really like Hardy Boys, Railway Children, Treasure Island level plot mechanics. Like, I used to think that was actually like the parts that just work well in a dumb movie. Like, I used to think that was actually the weakness. I used to like the mystical stuff and the travel stuff and the really crazy world building and the involved descriptions. But the older I get, the more I think, and it's clearly because Tolkien didn't read this kind of trash. Like, he wasn't a guy who read pulp magazines. His influences were like not the Hardy Boys, but the British equivalent. I said Railway Children. Somebody else would know better than me. Treasure Island, clearly. This whole sequence is so reminiscent of the part in Treasure Island where they're sent to find a boat, and they have the note that's like, don't trust Long John Silver, and then they hook up with, like, it's the same. It's not the same, but you guys know what I mean. Yeah, I would, if I could interview Tolkien, I would ask him about how much he loved Treasure Island when he was a kid, and also Wind in the Willows, I think, was a really primary influence for him. But I don't know. I haven't read much Tolkien or much about Tolkien outside the trilogy. I've read this over and over again my whole life. I haven't even read The Hobbit that much, the original book, because I didn't have a copy of it when I was in middle school or high school. The hobbits rode on up a gentle slope, passing a few detached houses, and drew up outside the inn. The houses looked large and strange to them. Sam stared up at the inn with its 3 stories and many windows and felt his heart sink. He had imagined himself meeting giants taller than trees and other creatures even more terrifying, some time or other in the course of his journey. But at the moment he was finding his first sight of men and their tall houses quite enough, indeed too much for the dark end of a tiring day. He pictured black horses standing all saddled in the shadows of the inn yard, and black riders peering out of dark upper windows. "We surely aren't going to stay here for the night, are we, sir?" he exclaimed. "If there are hobbit folk in these parts, why don't we look for some that would be willing to take us in? It would be more homelike." "What's wrong with the inn?" said Frodo. "Tom Bombadil recommended it. I expect it's homelike enough inside." Even from the outside, the inn looked a pleasant house to familiar eyes. It had a front on the road and 2 wings running back on land, partly cut out of the lower slopes of the hill, so that at the rear the second-floor windows were level with the ground. There was a wide arch leading to a courtyard between the 2 wings, and on the left, under the arch, there was a large doorway reached by a few broad steps. The door was open and light streamed out of it. Above the arch there was a lamp, and beneath it swung a large signboard. A fat white pony reared up on its hind legs. Over the door was painted in white letters, "The Prancing Pony" by Barrowman-Butterbur. Many of the lower windows showed lights behind thick curtains. As they hesitated outside in the gloom, someone began singing a merry song inside, and many cheerful voices joined loudly in the chorus. They listened to this encouraging sound for a moment and then got off their ponies. The song ended, and there was a burst of laughter and clapping. They led their ponies under the arch, and leaving them standing in the yard, they climbed up the steps. Frodo went forward and nearly bumped into a short, fat man with a bald head and a red face. He had a white apron on and was bustling out of one door and in through another, carrying a tray laden with full mugs. "Can we?" began Frodo. "Half a minute, if you please," shouted the man over his shoulder, and vanished into a babel of voices and a cloud of smoke. In a moment he was out again, wiping his hands on his apron. "Good evening, little master," he said, bending down. "What may you be wanting?" "Beds for 4 and stabling for 5 ponies, if that can be managed. Are you Mr. Butterbur?" "That's right. Barlaman is my name. Barlaman-Butterbur, at your service. You're from the Shire, eh?" he said, and then suddenly he clapped his hand to his forehead as if trying to remember something. "Hobbits," he cried. "Now what does that remind me of? Might I ask your names, sir?" "Mr. Took and Mr. Brandybuck," said Frodo, "and this is Sam Gamgee. My name is Underhill." "There now," said Mr. Butterbur, snapping his fingers. "It's gone again, but it'll come back when I have time to think. I'm run off my feet, but I'll see what I can do for you. We don't often get a party out of the Shire nowadays, and I should be sorry not to make you welcome, but there is such a crowd already in the house tonight as there hasn't been for long enough. It never rains but it pours, we say in Bree." "Aye, Nob!" he shouted. "Where are you, you woolly-footed slow-coach? Nob!" "Coming, sir, coming." A cheery-looking hobbit bobbed out of a door, and seeing the travelers, stopped short and stared at them with great interest. "Where's Bob?" asked the landlord. "You don't know? Well, find him. Double sharp. I haven't got 6 legs, nor 6 eyes neither. Tell Bob there's 5 ponies that have to be stabled. He must find room somehow." Nob trotted off with a grin and a wink. Zoe's in my lap purring. Yes, I love you too, Zoe. "Well, now, what was I going to say?" said Mr. Butterbur, tapping his forehead. "One thing drives out another, so to speak. I'm that busy tonight, my head is going round. There's a party that came up the Greenway from down south last night, and that was strange enough to begin with. Then there's a traveling company of dwarves going west come in this evening. Now there's you. If you weren't hobbits, I doubt if we could house you, but we've got a room or 2 in the north wing that were made special for hobbits when this place was built. On the ground floor, as they usually prefer, round windows and all as they like it. I hope you'll be comfortable. You'll be wanting supper, I don't doubt. As soon as may be. This way now." He led them a short way down a passage and opened a door. "Here is a nice little parlor," he said. "I hope it will suit. Excuse me now, I'm that busy. No time for talking. I must be trotting. It's hard work for 2 legs, but I don't get thinner. I'll look again." "It's hard work for 2 legs, but I don't get thinner. I'll look in again later. If you want anything, ring the handbell and Nob will come. If you don't come, ring and shout." Yes, Zoe. Are you Are you gonna settle, buddy? It's just so much easier for me to read up here. I'm sorry. You're not gonna get more Zoe video right now. It's just too uncomfortable. She's still curled up in my lap, burring. Right. Off he went at last and left them feeling rather breathless. He seemed capable of an endless stream of talk, however busy he might be. They found themselves in a small and cozy room. There was a bit of bright fire burning on the hearth, and in front of it were some low and comfortable chairs. There was a round table already spread with a white cloth, and on it was a large handbell. But Nob, the hobbit servant, came bustling in long before they thought of ringing. He brought candles and a tray full of plates. "Will you be wanting anything to drink, masters?" he asked, "and shall I show you to the bedrooms while your supper is got ready?" They were washed and in the middle of good deep mugs of beer when Mr. Butterbur and Nob came in again. In a twinkling the table was laid. There was hot soup, cold meats, a blackberry tart, new loaves, slabs of butter, and half a ripe cheese. Good plain food, as good as the Shire could show, and homelike enough to dispel the last of Sam's misgivings, already much relieved by the excellence of the beer. The landlord hovered round for a little, and then prepared to leave them. "I don't know whether you would care to join the company when you have supped," he said, standing at the door. "Perhaps you would rather go to your beds. Still, the company would be very pleased to welcome you if you had a mind. We don't get outsiders, travelers from the Shire, I should say, begging your pardon, often, and we'd like to hear a bit of news or any story or song you may have in mind. But as you please, ring the bell if you lack anything." So refreshed and encouraged did they feel at the end of their supper, about 3/4 of an hour's steady going, not hindered by unnecessary talk, that Frodo, Pippin, and Sam decided to join the company. Mary said it would be too stuffy. "I shall sit here quietly by the fire for a bit, and perhaps go out later for a sniff of the air. Mind your P's and Q's, and don't forget that you are supposed to be escaping in secret, and are still on the high road and not very far from the Shire." "All right," said Pippin. "Mind yourself. Don't get lost, and don't forget that it is safer indoors." So, again, let me point out, like, this is very boys' adventure. This is very boys' adventure, like middle reader stuff. Like, the 4 of them are supposed to be keeping a low profile. So 3 of them decide to go to the bar where it's crowded with travelers. And the 4th one decides to break off and go do something alone. Like, he doesn't even have a reason. He doesn't even have a reason. He just dangles on purpose. You guys, remember, we're not supposed to make any kind of public appearance here anyway. I'll see you after the club. I'm just going to go for a walk in the dark, in the night. Be safe. I mean, it's weird that it doesn't play with as them being just, I mean, I think some of the people I know who don't like Lord of the Rings, they probably are really annoyed by how dumb the hobbits are, how often. Like, they just keep being dumb. They keep walking right into it. And that actually is what made me notice. I think that one of Tolkien's models is actually Treasure Island. I think that Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson was a very formative book for him, because that book has that problem to me. The plotting is just so silly. Like, it has mythic resonance in ways that make it work, despite how silly it is. And that's, of course, true of Lord of the Rings often as well. I think I might be allergic to Zoe. The company was in the big common room of the inn. The gathering was large and mixed, as Frodo discovered when his eyes got used to the light. This came chiefly from a blazing log fire, for the 3 lamps hanging from the beams were dim and half veiled in smoke. Barlaam Butterbur was standing near the fire, talking to a couple of dwarves and 1 or 2 strange-looking men. On the benches were various folk, men of Bree, a collection of local hobbits sitting chattering together, a few more dwarves, and other vague figures difficult to make out away in the shadows and corners. As soon as the Shire hobbits entered, there was a chorus of welcome from the Breelanders. The strangers, especially those that had come up the greenway, stared at them curiously. The landlord introduced the newcomers to the Bree folk so quickly that... Jesus, hold on. Huh. Yeah, it is. Whatever went wrong with my lungs 3 years ago, when I do these readings, I hit about between 45 and 50 minutes. And I have this weird moment that's like a serious coughing fit. And it feels like that's actually the point on some level. Like there's a physical therapy element here. And it's like yogic breathing, but it's not. It's controlled breathing in a different way. I do this slightly projecting actor voice for about 45 straight minutes, and then I have one of these coughing moments. The strangers, especially those that had come up the greenway, stared at them curiously. The landlord introduced the newcomers to the Bree folk so quickly that, though they caught many names, they were seldom sure who the names belonged to. The men of Bree seemed all to have rather botanical, and to the Shire folk rather odd names, like Rushlight, Goatleaf, Heathertoes, Appledore, Thistlewool, and Ferny, not to mention Butterbur. Some of the hobbits had similar names. The mugworts, for instance, seemed numerous, but most of them had natural names such as Banks, Brockhouse, Longholes, Sandheaver, and Tunnelly, many of which were used in the Shire. There were several Underhills from Staddle, and as they could not imagine sharing a name without being related, they took Frodo to their hearts as a long-lost cousin. The Bree hobbits were, in fact, friendly and inquisitive, and Frodo soon found that some explanation of what he was doing would have to be given. He gave out that he was interested in history and geography, at which there was much wagging of heads, although neither of these words were much used in the Bree dialect. He said he was thinking of writing a book, at which there was silent astonishment, and that he and his friends wanted to collect information about hobbits living outside the Shire, especially in the eastern lands. Zoe, stop. Stop agitating. Yes, settle down. That rumpling you were just hearing was Zoe crawling all over the ramen noodles again. Dude, she's crouched. She's going to start agitating again as soon as I start reading. And that he and his friends wanted to collect information about hobbits living outside the Shire, especially in the eastern lands. At this, a chorus of voices broke out. If Frodo had really wanted to write a book and had had many ears, he would have learned enough for several chapters in a few minutes. And if that was not enough, he was given a whole... Zoe, you can't do this. Come on. You can go over there. If you've been in these reading streams, I now have it clear over here where this shelf is. So it's clear what she wants to do. She gets in my lap for a while, and then it's cramped because I'm pushed up against the desk. So then she gets restless, and she just wants to be here, and then here, and then here, and then here. But really what she wants to do is curl up right on the keyboard where I'm staring. You know what I have to do? I have to electrify the keyboard, the laptop, the whole laptop. It has to just hum with shock. Or maybe heat. Maybe if the whole thing is just hot enough to annoy a cat, not to, that would probably burn me. So electric shock. I have to rig it so when you touch it, you get shocked. And that way, when the cats put a paw on it, they'll learn. And I'll just get used to it. Like when I type or press my face against it. like when I press my face to the screen. I don't do it very often, so it wouldn't come up very often. In fact, I'm not sure I've ever done that before. You notice how she hasn't done a thing the whole time, but she hears the book moving. Did you see that? That was like one of those aliens from the Alien movies, like uncurling from the infrastructure. If Frodo had really wanted to write a book and had had many ears, he would have learned enough for several chapters in a few minutes. And if that was not enough, he was given a whole list of names, beginning with old Barliman here, to whom he could go for further information. But after a time, as Frodo did not show any sign of writing a book on the spot, the hobbits returned to their questions about doings in the Shire. Frodo did not prove very communicative, and he soon found himself sitting alone in a corner, listening and looking around. The men and dwarves were mostly talking of distant events and telling news of a kind that was becoming only too familiar. There was trouble away in the south, and it seemed that the men who had come up the Greenway were on the move, looking for lands where they could find some peace. The Bree folk were sympathetic, but plainly not very ready to take a large number of strangers into their little land. One of the travelers, a squint-eyed, ill-favored fellow, was foretelling that more and more people would be coming north in the near future. If room isn't found for them, they'll find it for themselves. They've a right to live same as other folk, he said loudly. The local inhabitants did not look pleased at the prospect. The hobbits did not pay much attention to all this, as it did not at the moment seem to concern hobbits. Big folk could hardly beg for lodgings in hobbit holes. They were more interested in Sam and Pippin, who were now feeling quite at home and were chatting gaily about events in the Shire. Pippin roused a good deal of laughter with an account of the collapse of the roof of the town hole in Mishel Delving. Will Whitfoot, the mayor, and the fattest hobbit in the West Farthing, had been buried in chalk and came out like a floured dumpling. But there were several questions asked that made Frodo a little uneasy. One of the Breelanders, who seemed to have been in the Shire several times, wanted to know where the Underhills lived and who they were related to. Suddenly Frodo noticed that a strange-looking, weather-beaten man, sitting in the shadows near the wall, was also listening intently to the hobbit talk. He had a tall tankard in front of him and was smoking a long-stemmed pipe curiously carved. His legs were stretched out before him, showing high boots of supple leather that fitted him well, but had seen much wear and were now caked with mud. A travel-stained cloak of heavy, dark green cloth was drawn close about him, and in spite of the heat of the room, he wore a hood that overshadowed his face, but the gleam of his eyes could be seen as he watched the hobbits. "Who is that?" Frodo asked when he got a chance to whisper to Mr. Butterbur. "I don't think you introduced him." "Him?" said the landlord in an answering whisper, cocking an eye without turning his head. "I don't rightly know. He is one of the wandering folk, rangers we call them. He seldom talks, not but what he can tell a rare tale when he has the mind. He disappears for a month or a year, and then he pops up again. He was in and out pretty often last spring, but I haven't seen him about lately. What his right name is I've never heard, but he's known round here as Strider. Goes about at a great pace on his long shanks, though he don't tell nobody what cause he has to hurry. But there's no accounting for east and west, as we say in Bree, meaning the rangers and the Shire folk, begging your pardon. Funny you should ask about him." But at that moment Mr. Butterbur was called away by a demand for more ale, and his last remark remained unexplained. Frodo found that Strider was now looking at him, as if he had heard or guessed all that had been said. Presently, with a wave of his hand and a nod, he invited Frodo to come over and sit by him. As Frodo drew near, he threw back his hood, showing a shaggy head of dark hair flecked with gray, and in a pale, stern face a pair of keen gray eyes. "I am called Strider," he said in a low voice. "I'm very pleased to meet you, Master Underhill, if old Butterbur got your name right." "He did," said Frodo stiffly. He felt far from comfortable under the stare of those keen eyes. "Well, Master Underhill," said Strider, "if I were you, I should stop your young friends from talking too much. Drink, fire, and chance meeting are pleasant enough, but, well, this isn't the Shire. There are queer folk about. Though I say it as shouldn't, You may think," he added with a wry smile, seeing Frodo's glance, "and there have been even stranger travelers through Bree lately," he went on, watching Frodo's face. Frodo returned his gaze but said nothing, and Strider made no further sign. His attention seemed suddenly to be fixed on Pippin. To his alarm, Frodo became aware that the ridiculous young Took, encouraged by his success with the fat mayor of Mishel Delving, was now actually giving a comic account of Bilbo's farewell party. He was already giving an imitation of the speech and was drawing near to the astonishing disappearance. Frodo was annoyed. It was a harmless enough tale for most of the local hobbits, no doubt, just a funny story about those funny people away beyond the river, but some, old Butterbur, for instance, knew a thing or two, and had probably heard rumors long ago about Bilbo's vanishing. It would bring the name of Baggins to their minds, especially if there had been inquiries in Bree after that name. Frodo fidgeted, wondering what to do. Pippin was evidently much enjoying the attention he was getting and had become quite forgetful of their danger. Frodo had a sudden fear that in his present mood he might even mention the ring, and that might well be disastrous. "You had better do something quick," whispered Strider in his ear. I lost my place. Nolan, I'm starting at Subway tomorrow. Hello, user Diane. I should probably make you a mod. Though being a moderator doesn't apparently stop me from accidentally banning you. I have no idea how many fans of the stream I've accidentally genuinely banned. I miss sometimes the mark. I'm not very good at this. "You had better do something quick," whispered Strider in his ear. Frodo jumped up and stood on a table and began to talk. The attention of Pippin's audience was disturbed. Some of the hobbits looked at Frodo and laughed and clapped, thinking that Mr. Underhill had taken as much ale as was good for him. Frodo suddenly felt very foolish and found himself, as was his habit when making a speech, fingering the things in his pocket. He felt the ring on its chain, and quite unaccountably the desire came over him to slip it on and vanish out of the silly situation. It seemed to him, somehow, as if the suggestion came to him from outside, from someone or something in the room. He resisted the temptation firmly and clasped the ring in his hand, as if to keep a hold on it and prevent it from escaping or doing any mischief. At any rate, it gave him no inspiration. He spoke a few suitable words, as they would have said in the Shire. "We were all very much gratified by the kindness of your reception, and I venture to hope that my brief visit will help to renew the old ties of friendship between the Shire and Bree." And then he hesitated and coughed. Everyone in the room was now looking at him. "A song!" shouted one of the hobbits. "A song! A song!" shouted all the others. "Come on now, master. Sing us something that we haven't heard before." For a moment, Frodo stood gaping. Then, in desperation, he began a ridiculous song that Bilbo had been rather fond of, and indeed rather proud of, for he had made up the words himself. It was about an inn, and that is probably why it came into Frodo's mind just then. Here it is in full. Only a few words of it are now, as a rule, remembered. "There is an inn." Oh, you know what? I'm going to take it off the pipe before I read this. I'm not going to sing it. I'm not going to come up with a tune. But I will read it with regret. I always regret the parts where Tolkien does poems. Almost always. This one's kind of cute. "There is an inn, a merry old inn, beneath an old grey hill, and there they brew a beer so brown that the man in the moon himself came down one night to drink his fill. The ostler has a tipsy cat that plays a 5-stringed fiddle, and up and down he runs his bow, now squeaking high, now purring low, now sawing in the middle. The landlord keeps a little dog that is mighty fond of jokes. When there's good cheer among the guests, he cocks an ear at all the jests and laughs until he chokes. They also keep a horned cow, as proud as any queen, but music turns her head like ale and makes her wave her tufted tail and dance upon the green. And oh, the rows of silver dishes and the store of silver spoons. For Sunday there's a special pair, and these they polish up with care on Saturday afternoons. The man in the moon was drinking deep, and the cat began to wail. A dish and a spoon on the table danced. The cow in the garden madly pranced, and the little dog chased his tail. The man in the moon took another mug, and then rolled beneath his chair, and there he dozed and dreamed of ale, till in the sky the stars were pale, and dawn was in the air. Then the ostler said to his tipsy cat, "The white horses of the moon, they neigh and champ their silver bits, but their master's been and drowned his wits, and the sun'll be rising soon." So the cat on his fiddle played "Hey Diddle Diddle," a jig that would wake the dead. He squeaked and sawed and quickened the tune, while the landlord shook the man in the moon. "It's after 3," he said. They rolled the man slowly up the hill and bundled him into the moon, while his horses galloped up in rear, and the cow came capering like a deer, and a dish ran up with the spoon. Now quicker the fiddle went deedle-dum-diddle, the dog began to roar. The cow and the horses stood on their heads, the guests all bounded from their beds and danced upon the floor. With a ping and a pong, the fiddle strings broke, the cow jumped over the moon, and the little dog laughed to see such fun, and the Saturday dish went off at a run with the silver Sunday spoon. The round moon rolled behind the hill as the sun raised up her head. She hardly believed her fiery eyes, for though it was day, to her surprise they all went back to bed. There was loud and long applause. Frodo had a good voice, and the song tickled their fancy. "Where's old Barley?" they cried. "He ought to hear this. Bob ought to learn his cat the fiddle, and then we'd have a dance." They called for more ale and began to shout, "Let's have it again, master. Come on now, once more." They made Frodo have another drink, and then begin his song again, while many of them joined in, for the tune was well known, and they were quick at picking up words. Come on. That's one too many. It was now Frodo's turn to feel pleased with himself. He capered about on the table, and when he came a second time to "The cow jumped over the moon," he leaped in the air, much too vigorously, for he came down bang into a tray full of mugs and slipped and rolled off the table with a crash, clatter, and bump. The audience all opened their mouths wide for laughter and then stopped short in gaping silence, for the singer disappeared. He simply vanished, as if he had gone slap through the floor without leaving a hole. The local hobbits stared in amazement, and then sprang to their feet and shouted for Barlaman. All the company drew away from Pippin and Sam, who found themselves left alone in a corner and eyed darkly and doubtfully from a distance. It was plain that many people regarded them now as the companions of a traveling magician of unknown powers and purpose. But there was one swarthy Breelander who stood looking at them with a knowing and half-mocking expression that made them feel very uncomfortable. Presently he slipped out of the door, followed by the squint-eyed Southerner. The two had been whispering together a good deal during the evening. "Hey, oh, so very ordinary, a little bit. My tongue is still a mess, but I'm better enough to read. It's really, really painful, actually. I took a bunch of extra kratom, and I've taken like 8 Tylenol. But I didn't want to go another night without reading. I think I went 2 nights. And I had to cut way back on the caffeine today. I think I came really close to some kind of hard episode last night. Starting a new job tomorrow and working an 8-hour shift, so I gotta take it easy. Unfortunately. Gotta squeeze all I can out of what little is left of me. Thanks for asking. Wish there was something I could do about my tongue. I mean, you can hear it. I'm fighting it, but you can hear it, that there's a wound. But there was one swarthy Breelander who stood looking at them with a knowing and half-mocking expression that made them feel very uncomfortable. Presently he slipped out of the door, followed by the squint-eyed Southerner. The two had been whispering together a good deal during the evening. Frodo felt a fool. Not knowing what else to do, he crawled away under the tables to the dark corner by Strider, who sat unmoved, giving no sign of his thoughts. Frodo leaned back against the wall and took off the ring. How it came to be on his finger he could not tell. He could only suppose that he had been handling it in his pocket while he sang, and that somehow it had slipped on when he stuck out his hand with a jerk to save his fall. For a moment he wondered if the ring itself had not played him a trick. Perhaps it had tried to reveal itself in response to some wish or command that was felt in the room. He did not like the looks of the men that had gone out. "Well," said Strider, when he reappeared, "why did you do that? Worse than anything your friends could have said. You have put your foot in it, or should I say your finger?" "I don't know what you mean," said Frodo, annoyed and alarmed. "Oh, yes, you do," answered Strider, "but we had better wait until the uproar has died down. Then, if you please, Mr. Baggins, I should like a quiet word with you." "What about?" asked Frodo, ignoring the sudden use of his proper name. "A matter of some importance to us both," answered Strider, looking Frodo in the eye. "You may hear something to your advantage." "Very well," said Frodo, trying to appear unconcerned. "I'll talk to you later." Meanwhile, an argument was going on by the fireplace. Mr. Butterbur had come trotting in, and he was now trying to listen to several conflicting accounts of the event at the same time. "I saw him, Mr. Butterbur," said a hobbit, "or leastways I didn't see him, if you take my meaning. He just vanished into thin air, in a manner of speaking." "You don't say, Mr. Mugwort," said the landlord, looking puzzled. "Yes, I do," replied Mugwort, "and I mean what I say, what's more." "There's some mistake somewhere," said Butterbur, shaking his head. "There's too much of that Mr. Underhill to go vanishing into thin air, or into thick air, as is more likely, in this room." "Well, where is he now?" cried several voices. "How should I know? He's welcome to go where he will, as long as he pays in the morning. There's Mr. Took now. He's not vanished." "Well, I saw what I saw, and I saw what I didn't," said Mugwort obstinately. "And I say there's some mistake," repeated Butterbur, picking up the tray and gathering up the broken crockery. "Of course there's a mistake," said Frodo. "I haven't vanished. Here I am. I've just been having a few words with Strider in the corner." Good work. "I wasn't doing anything weird. I was just, talking to the shadiest character in the bar. What's up?" He came forward into the firelight, but most of the company backed away even more perturbed than before. Yes. They were not in the least satisfied by his explanation that he had crawled away quickly under the tables after he had fallen. Most of the hobbits and the men of Bree went off then and there in a huff, having no fancy for further entertainment that evening. One or two gave Frodo a black look and departed muttering among themselves. The dwarves and the 2 or 3 strange men that still remained got up and said good night to the landlord, but not to Frodo and his friends. Before long, no one was left but Strider, who sat on unnoticed by the wall. Mr. Butterbur did not seem much put out. He reckoned very probably that his house would be full again on many future nights, until the present mystery had been thoroughly discussed. "Now what have you been doing, Mr. Underhill?" he asked. "Frightening my customers and breaking up my crocks with your acrobatics." "I am very sorry to have caused any trouble," said Frodo. "It was quite unintentional, I assure you. A most unfortunate accident." "All right, Mr. Underhill, but if you're going to do any more tumbling or conjuring or whatever it was, you'd best warn folk beforehand, and warn me. We're a bit suspicious round here of anything out of the way, uncanny, if you understand me, and we don't take to it all of a sudden." "I shan't be doing anything of the sort again, Mr. Butterbur, I promise you. And now I think I'll be getting to bed. We shall be making an early start. Will you see that our ponies are ready by 8 o'clock? "Very good. But before you go, I should like a word with you in private, Mr. Underhill. Something has just come back to my mind that I ought to tell you. I hope that you'll not take it amiss. When I've seen to a thing or two, I'll come along to your room if you're willing." "Certainly," said Frodo, but his heart sank. He wondered how many private talks he would have before he got to bed, and what they would reveal. Were these people all in league against him? He began to suspect even old Butterbur's fat face of concealing dark designs. Chapter 10, Strider. Nolan, the chest pains, it's actually happened once while I was reading just now, but it wasn't. I woke up today and felt like my heart was fluttering really hard. I forgot that I was having chest pains last night. They haven't been insistent enough for me to consistently remember I've been having them. That was only, I think, the 3rd or 4th time. They feel like just like muscles twitching that aren't my heart because of my heart. Like it feels like nasty little spasms, like Charlie horse kind of spasms that happen really quickly, like over here or here or here. Like one happened here. When I'm leaning forward and reading, they happen kind of regular. Like it's like the fluttering that's clearly from high blood pressure is maybe more alarming. I cut the caffeine and the mushrooms in half basically today, like right out of the gate. First 4 hours I was up today, I didn't take any stimulants at all. I just ate half a reefer gummy. And by then, it felt okay. I felt okay. I feel a little fluttery in the last hour, probably from the kratom. But that's the other thing. I didn't do any kratom all day. I only did one dose of the mushroom stuff instead of about four. And I didn't take any caffeine at all for like 5-6 hours. And I got to be really careful about eating. And I mean, it's my teeth really that made me panic last night. But also, like, yeah, when your heart acts funny, you actually lack heart. Like, it really is like your heart is not in it. Like, these are not just expressions. Like, when your heart starts to get weird, you lose heart. Like, you could see it last night. Like, I would just take that stream down and throw it away. Between the pain in my mouth, which has been consistent, but my heart acting funny was just the last straw. I couldn't do it. I just have to be very careful about overdoing stimulants. I smoked a cigarette day before yesterday. I'm still recovering from just smoking that one cigarette. Try to stay below 500 milligrams a day. They're 200 milligram pills, and the store that sells the kind that you can break into 100 milligram doses has been out of stock of them. But normally I take probably 5 or 6 of these 200 milligram pills, maybe 7 or 8. And today I've only taken 3. What's the best mushroom kratom diet food cocktail portion that works best for you? That gets into actually recommending this stuff, and I can't do that. Like, literally, like, it's against the rules. But I'm lowball it. I microdose everything. I try not to overdo anything. Every time I've talked to anyone about any of this stuff, they take a lot more than me. Yeah, that's too much. I mean, I used to take a lot of Adderall. I can't, like, since my heart went out, I haven't been able to get back on insurance. So, I mean, I haven't had the heart trouble addressed. So, yeah. Yeah, and the lungs. I mean, you can hear that the lungs are being weird, though I smoke a little, so. Yeah, it's not my teeth that hurt, it's my tongue. My upper tooth and lower tooth are both smashed in such a way that they're like, they keep tearing chunks out of the edge of my tongue. So, like, the more I talk, the more it hurts. If I sing particularly, it hurts. If I read particularly, it hurts. Like right now, I've taken enough Tylenol that it's almost numb, but it keeps catching. It's really, and that's been going on since mid-November. Sometimes it's better than others, depending on the way the teeth are sitting. Little bits of both teeth keep breaking off. Gargle salt water. Yeah, that might not be a bad idea. I have to use rubbing alcohol to disinfect my teeth already, or they just abscess like every like a week, like once a week. If I run out of the, like, I get the kind of mouthwash that's like 20% alcohol, and then I cut it with rubbing alcohol. Do I have a high tolerance and resistance to what? Where was I? Should I read some more of this, or should I call it a night? You know what? Maybe I'll call it a night because the tongue. Maybe it'll be better tomorrow. I am working an 8-hour shift at a new job tomorrow. I don't know how much that'll require me to talk. On the other hand, I've been aiming for an hour 30. And somehow I like to end in the middle of a chapter. Yeah, maybe I'll just hang out for a minute. I try not to just hang out in these streams. Yeah, this whole side of my head hurts right now, sometimes from the pain from my tongue, and it's twitching. I can feel it in my ear. I mean, it's one of the reasons I wanted 2 jobs, and I might have gotten fired from the one job tonight because the other guy was acting crazy. Really crazy. Like, thank you, Nolan. Yeah, I'll read from this part tomorrow. I put up I was going to say a report compilation. They're no longer called reports, though. I put up a new Haley's Homework playlist on the channel. Is the music I've been listening to. It's really fun. And I'm working on a video about the first movies of 1940, like from the calendar, like going from the beginning of 1940, but I'm a little hung up because the first thing on my list of important and interesting releases is a 15-part Republic serial based on The Shadow, the pulp and radio show star hit IP. They haven't really relaunched The Shadow since the 90s movie with Alec Baldwin. The radio show is pretty famous. It was originally a series of pulp magazines, I think. But this 15-part serial is actually pretty good. And serials get old quickly, but also I'm still interested. So instead of like, yeah, The Shadow knows. That guy, yeah. The shot frame, I turned it over to the side for the cats. I don't know. But yeah, so the Shadow is he's like a proto superhero. The Shadow and Doc Savage were both co-created by Lester Dent, and they're both sort of models for the costume superhero just a few years later. But the Shadow has a secret identity, like a superhero. He's a rich guy like Batman who just fights crime because he's crazy for fighting crime. And in the structure of the Shadow, the serial, it's very Chris Nolan, actually. Like, the design seems kind of like a Fritz Lang movie. And the premise is that the Shadow, okay, Lamont Cranston is the rich philanthropist who is secretly the Shadow, who fights crime as the Shadow. And in the serial, he's fighting a supervillain. Oh my God, what's his name? The Black Tiger, I think. And he's like a Moriarty kind of character, or like a Maboose character. Like he controls the underworld. He's like the Joker. And yeah, Gandalf, I'd really like to read some Doc Savage novels in here. I just don't have any of my old books. I had 40 or 50 of those Doc Savage novels. I've never really gotten into the Shadow as much. So but yeah, it's very Christopher Nolan. Like the Shadow is secretly Lamont Cranston, rich philanthropist. And in the story, he's trying to penetrate the organization of this supervillain called the Black Tiger. He like runs an underworld criminal organization, the Black Tiger, through threats and blackmail and terror. And he's invisible. There's this really cool bit where like he enters the boardroom with all the criminals, like all the gangsters have to meet like in a boardroom, and he's invisible, but there's a spotlight right where he is, and the spotlight moves around the room like right over him. It's really weird. But the police think the Black Tiger is actually the Shadow. Like, and the Shadow is also he's infiltrating the Black Tiger's organization by pretending to be an independent Chinese gangster in yellowface named Li Fang. Like he's got like face applications, and he does this very fake Chinese accent. Um, it's really fun. Like I've watched like 3 episodes of it, but it gets old really quickly too. Like I'll put it on after stream when I'm falling asleep, and I'm like, that's fun. But I only make it through like 10 minutes of it. And the whole thing is like 15 half-hour episodes. So I don't know how much of it I have to feel obligated to watch before I make a video, but like I just described it really like you don't need to know anything else. And then the next movie for 1940 is The Shop Around the Corner with Jimmy Stewart, which is a great, great movie. Romantic comedy, Ernst Lubitsch movie. They remade it as You've Got Mail in the 90s. And then the next movie is His Girl Friday with Cary Grant, which is just one of the greatest movies ever made. His Girl Friday is so amazing. The world was so young and full of promise when I discovered these movies. The Jimmy Stewart movie, Sean, The Shop Around the Corner. The movie You've Got Mail with Tom Hanks is a remake of it. Ernst Lubitsch directed it, and the premise is that I can't remember who the girl is, but she gets a job as a clerk at a department store. Like she's like one of the hat sales crew in the hat department, if I'm remembering right. And Jimmy Stewart is her fussy boss, and they hate each other at work, but they somehow get hooked up through like a correspondence outlet. Like this is in the days of snail mail, and so they would have these anonymous sweethearts as kind of like dating sites. But the way it would work is that you would have like a girlfriend who is anonymous, and you'd be using fake names or not know each other's names, and your letters would circulate through the exchange. So you're writing love letters to each other without knowing who each other are at all. And Jimmy Stewart and this girl who works for him are having this romance secretly with the letters on the side, working up their nerve to arrange to meet in public. But they hate each other at work. Of course, like there's this big scene where they finally arrange to meet each other in public, but they both like chicken out because they see each other at the bar, and they don't want to get caught on the first date with the person that they're exchanging letters with by the person they hate that they work with, so they both flee. um it's really good, and it's really young Jimmy Stewart. Like they hadn't quite figured out that he doesn't have the energy to play a romantic lead, right? Like he's better as like an ambiguous middle-aged guy. Margaret Sullivan. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. Ernst Lubitsch made, like during the era of socially conscious romantic comedies, Lubitsch made a bunch of really good movies. Or there's at least 3 or 4 that I like. I think That Uncertain Feeling is his, and he's pretty fascinated with divorce and infidelity for when these movies were made. Like there's a whole episode in The Shop Around the Corner where the boss, the owner of the store that everybody hates, finds out that his wife is cheating on him and has like a complete nervous collapse, and she leaves him, and there's a divorce, and you're like, oh, it's like, I want to say Heaven Can Wait is a Lubitsch picture too. I recently watched a bunch of his silent movies. He's one of those people who had a different career before the war era. When he came to Hollywood, he started making better movies, which wasn't always the case. Like with the transition, like Fritz Lang made these gigantic productions in Germany, and like there's some other filmmakers they're moved to Hollywood. Peter Lorre is actually another example. I don't, you know, I don't know how much they might have just been consciously putting Germans in their place, come to think of it. I think von Stroheim directed in Los Angeles. Did he? I know, what's his name? The other character actor, German character actor, is a director. Sternberg. He kept directing big movies, but he had Marlene Dietrich in his pocket. Like he made like 6 movies with her. They couldn't shut him out of being an A-list player after Morocco with Gary Cooper and Marlene Dietrich. That movie's a motherfucker. Oh my God, I swore in a reading stream. Damn it. I was smoking weed openly in this one. I shouldn't worry about it. Yeah. He made so many good Marlene Dietrich movies. I just watched The Blue Angel again like last week. It's really good. I don't know why Joseph von Sternberg movies are great. His movies shouldn't be great. They're too raw emotionally, and they're mean and cynical. The characters are just not likable. None of his characters are likable. The Last Command is the movie of his that just absolutely kills me. Silent movie. I've seen it 3 times now. It's incredible. Emil Jannings won Best Actor the year that Oscars began, 1927, for this movie, The Last Command. And it's actually based on something Ernst Lubitsch said, who directed The Shop Around the Corner. He was telling a story. He'd been a teenager in Russia under the Tsar, or maybe his family were diplomats. I don't remember. But in any case, he'd been at a state dinner under the Tsar before the Russian Red Revolution and met this general at a banquet. Like they're sitting across from each other when Lubitsch was like 16 or something. Really striking guy. And then like 15 years later, 20 years later in Los Angeles, he sees the guy in line for a cattle call for background extras for a big Hollywood movie. And he recognizes him because he's wearing the same uniform with all the same medals, like all this like pre-fall of the Tsar Russian military uniform and a whole bunch of medals is his general's uniform. And he goes over to talk to the guy, and the guy says, yeah, under the Tsar, I was a general and I had all these medals in this. But when I had to flee, when the government fell during the revolution, I got out with this is what I was wearing. And so when I do these casting calls, now that I'm an extra, he was making money as a day player in Hollywood, as like just a crowd guy in the crowds in big Hollywood movies. And he would always wear his Russian general's uniform to these cattle calls because they would remember him. And also sometimes they wanted like Russian military guys, like rarely, but it would happen like every now and then. So that's the basis for The Last Command, which the premise of The Last Command is that this general, Emil Jannings, oh man, he's so heartbreaking. That's the thing. In the Blue Angel, it's like that too. He plays a complete asshole. I don't know how much Emil Jannings like specialized in that, or those are both Joseph von Sternberg movies. Like maybe his movies are always, I don't know. A couple of his other movies aren't so the Marlene Dietrich movies, some of them are just romantic date movies. Like Morocco's just a fun romantic date movie. It's got like a dark streak, but it's because it's erotic and heavy. Like it's a good date movie. The Blue Angel is not a good date movie. The Last Command is like an anti-date movie. It's so heavy. It's so intense. So the premise of The Last Command is Emil Jannings is a former Russian general, and you see him getting a job as an extra on a Hollywood movie, being directed by William Powell. William Powell specifically singles him out of the crowd and tells them to get him into uniform as a Russian general. And he's so traumatized, he's like twitching. Jannings is just like, the second time you see this movie, he just makes you weep. And then there's flashbacks that explain that William Powell and his wife were part of an acting troupe that were detained near the border in Russia for political dissidents. And the general who fucked them up was Emil Jannings. And I don't want to give any more away. But the idea is that William Powell has a real reason for vengeance on this motherfucker and casts him as himself in this scene in this big Hollywood epic just to laser in on his PTSD and use it to destroy him like completely. in the moment while they're making a movie. Um, the Black Pirate. Oh yeah, on the big screen, Sean. That the Black Pirate with Douglas Fairbanks on the big screen would be astonishing. His other movie, The Thief of Baghdad, is that good too. I just watched he I've been watching the silent movies in order, watching all the good ones. Like I made an exhaustive list. I'm going back through. And so the first Douglas Fairbanks movie where he really comes up as an action star, he plays D'Artagnan in a silent Three Musketeers. And it's okay. Uh I mean, there's so many movies of the Three Musketeers, but then his first big breakthrough hit is Robin Hood, and he plays Robin Hood. And it's I don't know why there isn't really a good movie of Robin Hood other than maybe the Errol Flynn one. Um, but this one has the flaw of taking too long to get to Robin Hood. Like it takes like an hour to establish all the characters before he's like Robin Hood in the woods. The Three Stooges Robin Hood movie. Anyway, it's really gorgeously produced. It would make it like watching it on a big screen. Fairbanks himself was creative and creatively involved. The other Fairbanks movie I saw recently is just so great, and I don't know why it isn't more famous, is this very psychedelic comedy called When the Clouds Roll By. When the Clouds Roll By stars Douglas Fairbanks as a very neurotic, obsessive compulsive guy. Like he has to count things and he's really superstitious. He's obsessively superstitious. Or maybe the girl is a counter and like a rituals OCD. But he meets like the perfect girl for him because they're both superstitious and obsessive about little details. But part of the premise is that the psychiatrist makes a bet with another psychiatrist that he can drive a neurotic patient to kill himself by enlisting the help of everyone around him. So like Douglas Fairbanks, like everyone in his life, like his secretary, his coworkers, like the people who work at the restaurant where he eats lunch, everyone around him is in on this conspiracy being orchestrated by his psychiatrist who keeps giving him bad advice intentionally for his mental health, who's like, what you should do for your mental health is stay up late at night and drink too much strong coffee and then eat rare red meat right before you go to bed. Like, so, like, this movie is so funny. And then there's a dream sequence in it that's like, it's really, it's one of the trippiest things I've ever seen. Um, and they do this thing where Fairbanks like walks all the way around a room. Like it's just like the thing in 2001. Like except it's a house. Like it's like a cartoon house and walking across the living room and then he walks up the wall and across the ceiling and then at some point you realize they're actually rotating the whole house and the camera's mounted to it and then it does something else like it torques or something and you're like, okay, I don't really know how they did that. Um, it's really incredible when the clouds roll by, and it's great as a romantic comedy too. The thing where he meets like the psychiatrist cannot account for him actually meeting a girl that he syncs with and jives with. Like it's really really cool. Um, the theatrical poster is great. It seems genuinely druggy. Like it's really psychedelic. I know Fairbanks was a cocaine fan because of The Mystery of the Leaping Fish, and also a big fan of the Buñuel Dali surrealist movies. Like he was a cool guy. I don't know much about him. Uh, he's also a really good actor. The first that I know of really good Shakespeare movie is The Taming of the Shrew in 1929. I think that's Lillian Gish and Douglas Fairbanks. Um, and they pretty much like it's only like 65 minutes long and it's just the scenes that's them like yelling. Like it's really they just introduce the sidebar characters. You don't get the other romance or the like it's about Douglas Fairbanks and Lillian Gish. I think it's Lillian Gish. Pretty sure it's her. I don't know, it might be I get Mary Pickford and Lillian Gish, and there's one other one I get confused from the silent era. Because I'm not real big on any of the silent era actresses. It's a man in a red suit lighting a cigarette for the devil. It's I don't know why that movie's not more famous, actually. Like that, yeah. If I ran a movie theater and I got to show all the cool silent movies I want to show, I'm making a list, but that one's really it disturbs me that there's no way I can see all the good movies and make sure. Like I can't like that the world is never right about which movies matter the most. Like I can have a little bit of impact as a critic. Like I have enough cultural penetration that if I dig up a classic like that and I go on about it enough. Douglas Fairbanks really deserves rediscovering. The Thief of Baghdad, one of the things there is The Thief of Baghdad has this issue now with that kind of exoticism being de facto, post facto tagged as racist when it's not. I mean, it's not even just unintentional, it's just not racist. It's a weird kind of cultural appropriation. But I think that makes it hard for people to talk about The Thief of Baghdad. Like, I think movie critics sometimes are just cowards. They'll, certain kinds of things they think are fun to embrace, certain kinds of controversies and arguments but they calculate what the audience. I mean, it's really about watching the great movies. Like that's the thing. Like the point of these movies is they're fucking great movies. Like The Thief of Baghdad is just stunning. One of the most genuinely fantastic and beautiful movies I've ever seen. William Cameron Menzies designed it, who later designed Gone with the Wind. Get a projector and set up a Sean, I here in Hattiesburg, there are a lot of good local musicians, and I could definitely set up a series of silent movies accompanied by improv groups of musicians who don't normally work together. But I have to get caught up enough to be able to go hang out in public places and drink and talk to people and catch up with people. I'm fighting really uphill here against this bizarre reputation I have developed for violence and insanity, and my absence mostly predicated on some things Red has said. She's gonna come back and mess up anything I do too. Is The Birth of a Nation racist? Yeah. Yeah, it's really bad. It's so racist. It's really bad. I don't get offended easily. Birth of a Nation is pretty offensive. Um, the parts that are offensive are really offensive. The whole structure of the story is about how the Klan are anti-federalist heroes, like local politics. Like, it's really, it's disturbing. Um, and D.W. Griffith, yeah, I talked about that some in one of my silent movie videos. I've made 3 covering from the beginning to 1921. 22, really? I think there's one movie left in 1922 for the next part of that project. And then I decided to skip to 1930 because I was just sick of silent movies. And then I decided to skip to 1940 and do like I laboriously made lists for 1940, 1950, 1960, 1970, 80, 90, and 2000 so that I could start on each year at the top of each decade, which is like, there's just so many movies. Like, after about 1970, I can't get anything like a comprehensive list down to less than 150 movies a year. There's just too much coming out. And then at some point, about 2010, 2015, you see this information explosion effect that I just don't even fully understand, where the number of movies being made goes way up, and the numbers related to them all go way up. Like there's a much larger number of casual viewers voting on and looking up movies, but so few of them really matter. There's just fewer and fewer counterculture movies and cult movies that seem to come up through this endless wasteland of product. Um, Go to a movie bar. Yeah, so I've talked to there there's got to be a good venue for this, for live music with silent movies. And then maybe moving past silent movies and watching some early sound movies. But um I do have a list. Like, where's that notebook? I was lying on it earlier. What did I do with it? Like, I made a list that's specifically what I would show in a theater in order if I was gonna. You guys are being ridiculously cute. I don't know. It's here somewhere. The videos I made have lists of all the movies I recommend you watch if you're watching everything essential. But that's a longer list. Some of the movies that are mainstream classics that everybody who watches silent movies watches, I wouldn't bother to show in my own series of movies. Um, and then there's movies that are important for other reasons. Is that a gun on the chair, Q Cave? No. There's no chair. There's a shelf back there with there's some socks. Back of the chair. The back of this chair. There's a wheelchair back there. There's no guns here. How are you, Q Cave? I haven't seen you in a while. Stand up. Hey, there's a belt there. Is that what you mean? There's no guns here. There's just not. Dave had one that he lent to a friend. Not recently, like a while ago. Every time guns are mentioned, he's like, "Yeah, I had one, but I think there's no guns here." The guitar is back there, waiting in the corner. I wouldn't have a gun here. If someone around me had a gun, I wouldn't. I would shoot for content, actually, or hunting, but for content. I wouldn't want to kill anything and like eat it for any other reason to the channel. But you're not allowed to, for live streaming, you're not allowed to brandish a gun at all for any reason. Like, it's a hard rule with YouTube. So it would be a little weird. Where am I working now? I'm starting work at the Subway Vape Time tomorrow, and I'm working at this restaurant called Gold Post. Unless I am the guy who gets fired after tonight's debacle. One of the guys I was working with was really obviously just out of his mind on crystal. And the manager who was working with us both, I think, might be a crystal person who is not out of her mind. But when I pointed out that the other guy was clearly having a crystal episode, she was really offended and upset and said it was none of my business what anyone was on at work. So I think they might try to blame it on me. But I'm starting another job tomorrow. These people seem nicer anyway. I really like the Gold Post, but they're tense. I mean, if they're all on, you know what? I shouldn't say anything about anyone there being on Crystal. I'm live. I like the place. I like everybody there. That one guy is clearly on Crystal. They need to fire him. He was out of control. It was really disturbing. He was out of control all day. It was just like he was really accelerated yesterday. Like, he wasn't. It was nerve-wracking working with him yesterday. He was way too accelerated. And then at some point tonight, he just went entirely off the rails. And what was coming out of the kitchen had nothing to do with the orders. I don't even know how it really happened. Like, he kept telling the other girl we were working with that he didn't need help in the kitchen, and I'm not trained up enough to help, but I was running in the front and taking orders, and then we got hit by a rush, and he got whelmed. He got bundled. I mean, he probably would have been bundled anyway, but he didn't yell for help the right way. And then, yeah, the kitchen just fell apart on his watch. I mean, she's saying somebody's definitely going to get fired for this. That guy shouldn't be left alone in the kitchen. Like, without me trained up, like, I don't know why she didn't come to his rescue quicker. But they might try to blame me. Where are you going, Pie Wacket? Is it fine dining? No, the Goalpost is just a sandwiches and burgers place. Really good burgers and sandwiches. It's like a $20 lunch place. It's fast food. It's just really good fast food. And it's the one place that's been there since 1971. So it has like that level of local prestige. Like it's been there forever. A lot of the people are regulars who've been eating there for like 30 years. The burgers are great. Yeah. Gee, I hope I don't get fired. I mean, I'm not gonna tell the boss. She seemed worried that I was gonna tell the boss that, like, she doesn't seem like she's on crystal. She shouldn't be trying to cover for the dude that, I mean, this is, you shouldn't be worried about what drug somebody is on. Is like, okay, but it's like alcohol. There are certain specific ways in which somebody goes off the rails, or like heroin. Like if somebody's nodding, like you know what it is. Like the crystal thing is really, I mean, he's an okay kid. Shouldn't you be boss now? How many years experience? Well, I mean, you work up from the bottom anywhere you work. So I didn't, I mean, there's some kinds of corporate places where you can come in as a manager. Yeah, I might get hired on as a manager if I went to work for like Taco Bell or McDonald's or something. QK. That was actually, I don't know if you remember, but when I worked briefly for a Pizza Hut in Ohio, that was sort of my idea with that I would go into management. But the Pizza Hut I worked at here, they were super weird. I mean, at least these weird job experiences here are more interesting caliber of weirdness than in Ohio. And it's dense here with opportunity. Like I have another job lined up already this time. Like, I've got I haven't even actually collected the Pizza Hut paycheck yet because they got weird about wanting to text me at my phone number and the phone has been replaced. So talk about regional managers. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I mean, regional manager, that's probably something you would have to work up to. But McDonald's and Taco Bell also, sometimes those chains, there's really good job opportunities if you're willing to travel. But they'll want you to train, you be in a management training program instead of just being hired at, I mean, you'd probably still start at only like 12 or 13 an hour. I haven't, but we'll see. I mean, the place I'm about to move into is probably going to be 500 a month or less and includes utilities. So I don't need to worry about, really the limiter here is what it was in Ohio. Is my heart going to give out? I got to be careful. Like I can work 50-hour weeks. I can't work more than 50-hour weeks. Like I've already established. I don't know. I'm in better shape here. My heart is in better shape here, but I had an episode yesterday. I've been having little shooting pains. There's so few standalone Pizza Huts left. Was it original or one of the others? No, it had like a whole new interior and it looked like a Pizzeria Uno. Like it looked all like upscale and sort of yuppified and futurist, like heavy industrial, grim industrial design. The girl, you probably weren't in here. The assistant manager, the manager told me to call the next day to find out what hours I'd be working for the week. And when I called, the assistant manager told me it wasn't her job to tell me when I was working and hung up on me. And so then when I came in, She had already had me written up for insubordination by the district manager for refusing to come in to check the schedule. It's just like, oh, okay. You know what? There's other places to work. This place already, like half the reason I'm in trouble here with the trailer situation is because it took them like 3 or 4 weeks to onboard me to even start me on training shifts. It was really weird. Like that chain isn't just going out of business, it's committing harakiri. Not even suicide. Harakiri, it's so elaborate. It's like all baroque with detail. Like a Japanese garden. The feng shui, it's like it's the inverse of feng shui is whatever that the post Kafka thing going on there is. And that's two Pizza Huts I've worked at where the management has a problem with a crazy girl in her 20s. The standalone originals are usually better run. They used to have a company culture that lent itself to really good people. Like I'd worked there 4 or 5 times before, briefly at different times. I liked everyone at every Pizza Hut I worked at. This place and the place in Ohio, it seemed like a ragtag assortment of mentally ill losers and some decent people who are really, really gay. Like that actually both the Pizza Huts, like the people I liked were just super queer. Couple of trans people. And then like crazy girls. Really crazy girls. Um hey Turbo Christ. Um yeah, it's weird. It's kind of a shame. I like the food, actually. I want pizza. Um There's a spectacular barbecue place across the street from the gas station Subway where I'll be working. I may be the only white guy on the crew there, which might be one of the reasons why they're psyched to hire me. I might actually be a DEI hire, which is cool. Like I like that. That's good with me. It's better than good with me. I spent so long living and working in a genuinely seedy and genuinely dangerous neighborhood in Tampa that was about 80% black that I don't feel comfortable around a bunch of white people anymore. I really don't. Like if it's a slightly dangerous neighborhood that's still got a basically friendly tone and it's mostly not white, I feel at home. I was leaning over because I had such a bad itch in my ear. I stopped to Q-tip my ear while we were. It's because of my tongue. Did I get a diversity hire? I might have. Like I think I might be the only white guy working there. I'm not sure, but it seems like I might be. Everybody there seems really nice. Yeah. All women also, I think. Like it's all black women. Like 4 or 5 people I've met are all black women. So yeah, I might straight up be a DEI hire. So the manager actually flagged me down in the street. You guys remember when I was talking about that I really wanted to work at this place. It's a gas station, has vape time branding, meaning like the vape products and I don't know, it looks like THC and kratom and stuff they sell. I don't know, smoking gear. And there's a Subway in the back. And they like I was like, I really want to work here. Make sure. So when my phone got stolen, she tried to call me after that and I got hired at Gold Post about the same time. So I was riding my borrowed bike to work and she like flagged me down in the street. There's actually like a phalanx of cars in this weird way I don't follow. Like her car pulled up and around and pulled into an empty parking lot over by where that sign is that says Village Green that I posted that weird short of. And then another car with a black dude behind her pulled up. They must have been on the phone. They must have been on their cell phones when she saw me and they made this plan. But he pulled up and was like, "Hey, man, that lady who pulled over up there, she wants to talk to you about a job." And I was like, "Oh, that'd be Tabitha. Yeah, yeah, okay." And so, like, I went into the parking lot and talked to her. She was the manager from the subway Exxon. And she was like, "Do you still want that job?" And I've been working at Goldpost. They're giving me pretty good hours. But I thought like, yeah, 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 I'll do night shift. I was like, I can work night shifts for you. Because if she wants me bad enough to actually flag me down and pull me over, like, I already would rather work there. Like, nobody at Goldpost went out and recruited me. Like, so, um, but that might be why. That because like a DEI thing, like, do you, I mean, that's not, there's nothing nefarious about that. If they don't have any white guys working there who are old white guys, like that's um um but yeah. Uh yeah, and when I told the people at Goldpost I was gonna work there, Ashley, the girl who was the manager tonight, was like, "That place gets robbed all the time." I was like, yeah, the pizza place I worked at in Tampa, we had guns in holsters duct taped up under the counter so we could pull a Guido if somebody tried to rob us. Like literally at two different places, I think three different places in the lobby. It was like a fucking John Woo movie. Like if somebody had tried to rob that pizza place, they just would have been full of bullet holes like immediately. Me and Mr. Ford, the boss, and Danielle was also, she also had a gun in her purse. But yeah, there were guns all over that place. Like that, I did get robbed. Oh, I got robbed once at that pizza place. That kid had balls because he knew we were armed. The Chinese place, I got hit over the head once. I gave chase, and then the next day they shot somebody. So I guess the day they hit me over the head, they'd had a conversation where one of them was like, "I swear, if we just hit him over the head, he's gonna jump up and come after us. We ought to just shoot him." um, that was, even aside from the serial killer, the the old Seminole Heights shooter was hunting in the exact area I was delivering pizza in, shooting strangers in the street. Yeah. But things are kind of easygoing in other ways in places like that because it is like, it's the neighborhood. So it's relaxed and friendly and funny up until the minute it's not. Like you have to be able to code shift into suddenly being a bouncer. Like I can be intimidating. I like it. I like it when I get a chance to be intimidating. I like it when somebody tries to front me. I know my heart is flipping already. My heart's already not in good shape. Um, all right, guys. I try not to hang out and chat in these streams, but uh, I, well, I don't know. I might do that more and more because if the shifts at this place, well, I told them I can only work nights. I don't know if I'm gonna be the guy who falls on the sword at Goldpost so the meth fiends don't lose their jobs. I don't know. I don't know. To be fair, I don't think the boss, I don't know. She seemed fine. And to be fair, somebody could act entirely like it's a meth binge that's the problem. When it's something else that God only knows you wouldn't want to claim it. You no, I wasn't on meth. All that affect, that very methy affect, that's I just get like that sometimes. Like, no. That's really, that's not better. Really, just sit him down and tell him, you can't get that high before work, man. I don't know. He wasn't okay yesterday either. I think he was a couple days in. I couldn't help. I don't know the menu in the kitchen well enough to. I was running the front. I mean, I shouldn't laugh. It was bad. Somebody is gonna get fired. It might be me. He was trying to talk me into live streaming right before that happened too. And I said no. Like the guy who was really fried wanted me to live stream from work, and I was like, no, it might make the restaurant look bad. And I was thinking, you're too fried. You're acting way too weird. I don't want you on my live stream. I really was. I just was like, no. And they don't need to see what we do here. Food's really good. Gold Post is great. It train wrecked for the last hour tonight. If you're one of the 40 people who got their orders all scrambled, I apologize for Corbin. um all right, yeah, I'm working 2 to 10 tomorrow. So hopefully my mouth won't be a mess, and I'll come in and do I'll 2 to 10 means 11 East Coast time. So I will probably come straight into a reading stream because I don't want to mess these up. I just think that this is a cool thing to be doing, reading Tolkien. And the more nights I take to do it, like, my heart isn't in great shape. There's a lot of books I'd like to read in here. It's fun. I'm good at it. Good at reading out loud. It's better at it than playing guitar and singing. I'll see you guys tonight, tomorrow night, whichever night I meant by whatever I just said. Thank you.